How did your stage name come about, Richie Sonrize?
Okay. I collected a lot of albums, and I worked for a record company at one time, and I came upon this album, and it was produced by Jimi Hendrix, the only album he ever produced, and it was called Heir Apparent Sonrize. And that's how I got the name. I took the name off of that. So Jimmy.
So you have Jimi Hendrix to thank for your stage name.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's how I got it. I got it off the album. He produced the band called Heir Apparent Sonrize. And I spelled it the way he spelled it on the album, Sonrize. And getting back to the Electric Lady days, I recorded in Electric Lady Studios, Jimmy's old studios in Studio A. What happened was, well, Gene Simmons was a friend of mine, and Larry DiMarzio. Larry and me were friends, and Gene, when we were just starting out playing, Larry was a guitar player and Gene was a bass player, and I played drums, and we used to go over to Larry's house and sit around and just jam. And
so you could have been one of the members of Kiss.
No, I don't. Gene, that was Gene's project. I had Sonrize, and he had his own project. In fact, they were called Wicked Lester at the time. They weren't called Kiss. We were both recording in Electric Lady Studios at the same time. Gene and Larry and me were friends. And I remember one New Year's, Gene called me up and, come spend New Year's with me. And it was somewhere in the city, and there was nobody, just me and him pretty much.
So during your rock days, did you get a lot of women?
I'll go into that later. You want to get me in trouble with my wife? This isn't about the women. No, there was a camera. Hendrix had a camera installed. Electric Lady Studios was underground in the village, and he had a camera. And Electric Lady Studios, and it was a video camera at the time. And so when anybody came to the door of the studio to be rung in, you know, they get groupies showing up all the time. Let us in, let us in.
What about the drugs? Did you do drugs?
I just told you. I don't want to get into all that, my past. So I'll get into it later, the drug era. But I used to go to the Cheetah in New York, and bands played there every weekend, and we used to go, and we used to get, my dad had amphetamines because he worked a lot of hours in the bakery, and I would get some of his ups, and we'd take them, and we'd go to the city. And I never thought I saw Jimi Hendrix live. And years later, I picked up a book on Hendrix, and it said that he used to play at the Cheetah in New York City as Jimmy James and the Flames. I used to see him every weekend. I was from me to you, away from him, and on the stage. But he wasn't Jimi Hendrix at the time. He was Jimmy James, and they were playing top 40 music. They were playing what was on the radio. This was before he went to England. The Chambers Brothers used to play, Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, and Jimmy James and the Flames. They were like three of the bands. They rotated, and it was a real psychedelic era of the '60s. We're jumping around back and forth here, but that was my LSD days. And we used to take acid and go there and party. Oh God. A lot of it, it's gone. Can't remember a lot of it, but we used to go party and dance and have a good old time. But that's where I used to see Hendrix. But anyway, back to Gene. Gene invited me on New Year's to come down. He told me, Rich, I got this idea, and all the little girls are going to buy my records. And then when they get older, their daughters are going to buy my records. And it come true. Gene has definitely sold records to a lot of young girls. But Larry and DiMarzio, I have a 57 Les Paul, I told you that. And Larry, I showed it to him, and he played it, and he goes, oh my God, his pickups are amazing. Well, Larry was into electronics, so Larry went out and got a 57 Les Paul pickup, took it apart, and started his own company, which is the DiMarzio pickup, which is one of the most used pickups around the world. So Larry's a multi-millionaire. Gene's a multi-millionaire. So they both made a lot of money off of Gene off of Kiss, and Gene's producer was Hendrix's engineer, Eddie Kramer. And Eddie Kramer, at the time, I went and recorded my record, my 2-record set, and we recorded 5 songs in about 6 hours. It was Friday the 13th. It was a full moon, and we went in at midnight, and we recorded five tunes. That's guitar, bass, drums, overdubs, and vocals. And that was unheard of. Even nowadays, it's unheard of to record 5 songs in that length of time. And Kramer was impressed and invited me up to his house. And unfortunately, Gene got to him before I did. And he liked Gene's idea of the makeup and everything, so he produced Kiss. So he was the one that got Gene off the ground with Casablanca Records, I believe it was. And I was supposed to be his next project, but that didn't happen. I came out to LA and moved out here. I got married and took my honeymoon, which was 3 weeks. We drove across country. And we got out here, and I went up to Hollywood. And I remember I went up to Brothers Records, and they told me they had a new guy that they were going to back. And that was, his name was Tom Petty. And he was going to be the next big hit, which he was. And he sounded like Bob Dylan. Did you know Tom Petty sounded like Bob Dylan?
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah. I went to see Bob Dylan about 2 months ago. I was very disappointed. He didn't play any of his old hits, and if he did, he changed them around. I enjoyed.
That's what they do when they get sick of playing those same songs. Yeah. They change it.
I enjoyed John Cougar, because John Cougar sort of asked the audience what they wanted to hear, and he played what they wanted to hear.
Mellencamp?
Huh?
John Cougar Mellencamp?
Yeah.